Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
Let's be honest. Shopping, not my thing. I go to the store. There's a lot of people that, it's just not my thing. It's not football. All right. I spend way too long scrolling websites just looking for something simple like a nice pair of jeans. And I'm either overwhelmed by all the choices or can't find anything my style and end up with stuff that doesn't fit and doesn't work. That's why I use Stitch Fix. You just take a quick style quiz, share your size, your vibe, and your budget, and boom, you're matched with a real human stylists who handle the rest. They take care of the work for you. They send you a fix box with clothes that actually fit and make sense for your life, work, weekends, whatever. It saves you time. You look great, and you don't even have to think about it. That's the best part. It's no risk, all style. Try it all on in the comfort of your home. Keep what works, send back the rest. Free shipping and returns, always, and no subscription required. Plus, get a free try-on for your first fix. Get started today at stitchfix.com/podcast to get $20 off your first order, and they'll waive your styling fee. That's stitchfix.com/podcast.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. The Phoenix Suns are 1 win away from the Western Conference Finals after going up 3-0 against the Denver Nuggets. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, how you doing?
What is there even to say, my friend? I almost considered pitching to you that we just came on for a 30-minute episode of chanting Suns in 4 for this one the entire time, because as convincing a win as it gets for the Phoenix Suns, and now they're up 3-0. We know what Denver is up against. They're trying to do something now that 142 teams have tried and failed in the past. It's not to say it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say we're in good shape.
Yeah. I mean, the main reason I think we're in good shape is that they tried a bunch of different things, and it didn't work. It just didn't work.
They have no momentum.
Yeah.
Nothing. Here's where I want to start tonight. DeAndre Ayton.
A perfect place to start. Incredible.
I that's where I want to start, but I didn't even know what to say. As impactful for a third year player, I'm forgetting how old he is. For a third year player to be playing like this in his first playoff series, completely unfazed by the MVP Nikola Jokic, a perfect example of a game where you can't just look at the box score, because Jokic had a monster stat line, 32 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, but 13 for 29 from the field. And I said Ayton came into this game having held Jokic to 24 of 60 shooting through games 1 and 2. That's 40%. The stats have not updated yet, but I guarantee you it was under 50% again tonight. In fact, I think it was probably pretty close to that 40% number again. 3 games in a row that he has just absolutely matched him physically. He's never gotten in foul trouble once.
Yes.
We've never seen those sort of critical miscues and miscommunication on defense and just those little errors that you would expect from a young player. He looks like a 10-year veteran in his prime out there locking down the MVP. And it's amazing, Mike, because even in my wildest dreams, I did not think that this is how we'd be talking about DeAndre Ayton in his first playoff run. It's truly remarkable what he's doing right now, both against the Lakers and now against the Nuggets.
His development in his career as an NBA player, so the 3 seasons he's been an NBA player, is remarkable. But just isolating this single season, you could talk about his development being remarkable. Just this season alone, there were times when we talked about it throughout this season when he was on the court for the beginning of the season. The Suns were at their worst at times, and now they are by far at their best when he's on the court, to a point where we were terrified of him being in foul trouble in this series. And that's not been an issue. And I think that's not been an issue because of the level of discipline in the way that he plays defense against Jokic. It's incredible to watch because they do attempt to bait him into fouls, Jokic or anyone else, and he just does not foul. He's sound.
He's a
in
robot.
His defense.
He's a fucking robot. He doesn't fall for anything. I'm serious.
Yeah.
He does one foul in 37 minutes against Jokic.
Yeah. Against an MVP.
And by the end, Jokic was just grasping for anything he could get. He was complaining to the refs. He got a tech because he was just trying to bait him into contact that, wasn't really there. The fouls he was trying to get were basically non-existent.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, just stressing the point. I know everyone knows this by now, but we've been saying it all season. It's not about the stat line with DeAndre Ayton. Like, you look at his stat line tonight, and the reason this is so important is because we all watch the game. More people are watching the Suns now. But honestly, the vast majority of the NBA community is still not watching these games. The types of trolls y'all interact with on NBA Twitter, they're not watching these games. 10 points, 15 rebounds, 0 blocks. Not the type of stat line that pops off the page necessarily to tell you, wow, this guy was the most impactful player on the floor. I guess you could only debatably say he was the most impactful player on the floor tonight because other guys were so good on offense. But at least on defense, no doubt, most impactful player on the floor. Ayton has had games before where he puts up 20 and 15, and he just doesn't look that good. And then he has games like this where he has 10 and 15 and 0 blocks, which is why I say blocks are a garbage stat. They say virtually nothing about defense. He has stat lines like this where he just dominates that end of the court as to perfection, as much as he possibly could. And unless you're watching the games, you really can't make that final determination of exactly what his value is. And it's not just about the fact that the Suns won the game, because obviously people are happier when the Suns win games. But no, the Suns won this game because of DeAndre Ayton. Like, he's the number one thing I wanted to talk about in this game. Devin Booker did his thing. Chris Paul did his thing. They perfectly they perfectly attacked the Nuggets. I guess you could call it an adjustment. It wasn't a smart adjustment, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about all that in a second.
Looking forward to talking about that, yeah.
Talk about all that in a second, because that's important too. But it starts on defense, and the Nuggets have not been able to get into a rhythm offensively this entire series, and that comes down to DA. It's other guys too playing great team defense. Everyone's playing their role, but DA's at the center of it. I said, and you know what? I'm totally okay eating crow for this, because people gave me shit about this several months ago. There was one time in the middle of the season I was not happy with where DA's focus was on a game-to-game basis. I said, you can't call this guy a defensive anchor. This was about when the Suns were 500, I think a little bit after. In like January, maybe it was early February by that point. But I was like, you can't call this guy a defensive anchor. He's not playing like a defensive anchor. Since the All-Star break, he's playing like a defensive anchor in the truest sense of the word. And I can't say enough positive things about his game right now and where his development is headed, because he has just been amazing.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought it up in this game, because I think in a lot of ways the attention is going to go to other guys, and I think those guys rightfully deserve attention. But this is the type of game where the number one pick had a massive, massive impact on the game, and it deserves credit as well. And I think what's pretty amazing about this game is that when we talk about him defensively, we commonly talk about giving him almost less to do. because the idea is that he can focus on a specific matchup. Like we all remember his rookie year. He had games where he guarded Giannis. He had games where he guarded LeBron, and that was just his job in those games. But this game, his job was Jokic. But he still was switching out to guys, whether it be on the perimeter or at the rim, being that same rim protector and finding ways to trust his teammates to gang rebound, which worked relatively well. Obviously, Jokic had an incredible statistical performance on rebounds, but it just didn't affect the game in the way that they wanted it to and they needed it to in order for them to win. So he was juggling a lot of different responsibilities in this game. It wasn't just that his job was to lock down Jokic. And by the way, there was one stat in the middle of the game where I believe Jokic was shooting 4 for 12 while DeAndre Ayton was guarding him. And now the stats haven't updated yet. We record these immediately after the games. I imagine the stats are still relatively impressive, even after Jokic got a few to go in later on. They were not good shots, a lot of them. They were good shots for an MVP in that he can still make them, but they were contested shots. They were not wide open. And just to be able to do those two things this well in a game, I'm like I said, I'm glad you brought it up because he deserves a lot of the credit for what went down tonight.
Yeah, I really, he was amazing, Mike. Honestly, that's all I have to say about it. Is if we get this sustained effort out of him, then I don't want to bog down the conversation too much with contract discussions because
there's still time.
I think it can wait. I think it can wait until the summer when the run is officially over. Let's see what happens. A series against the Jazz would be much different than a series against the Clippers, which would be much different than a series against the Nets. All of those potential possibilities that are left for the Suns, we're going to see a lot of unique, different sort of combinations of these guys and adjustments and different matchups, and it'll just be interesting. But the trajectory he's on right now, I just did not expect him to be here in year 3. I'm going to be perfectly honest, and it's really encouraging. It's really encouraging.
I find it kind of amazing in this series, the starters are kind of doing all the work in a lot of ways. They're just really blowing out teams. They're blowing out the Nuggets when the starters are on the floor. It wasn't as balanced scoring as the last few games, and I think we're going to get into that. But the bench was good in this game, and they scored points in this game, but there wasn't moments where, in the Lakers series, where Cameron Payne just went on a 7-8 point run by himself in a 90-second span, and it changed the entire momentum of the game. In a lot of ways, the Suns are surviving the minutes when the bench is on the floor. Even though the bench is still playing well, it's just they're just really outscoring them. It's not a good matchup for the Nuggets while the starters on the floor. You look at the plus-minus for the starters, plus 18 with DeAndre Ayton on the floor, plus 19 with Devin Booker, plus 15 with Mikal Bridges, plus 18 with Jay Crowder, plus 8 with Chris Paul, who I think was just missing shots early in the game, and that's what affected that. Missing shots he normally makes, and then it's just they closed it out really well with Chris Paul on the floor. And the starters were not quite the same as far as plus-minus. Not that fully matters. I just think it's kind of interesting and indicative of how the game's going. Those 5 are on the floor, and the way that those 5 are playing together is the highest level that they've played this entire season by a pretty large amount. They really know how they play together.
I feel like now's a good time to bring up, remember when the Suns were starting Frank Kaminsky?
And what did he say at that time, by the way?
What the hell was that? What the hell was that entire phase? And the only reason I say that is because the reason you just said, what did we say at the time? We said, I want to build continuity because you were building for this.
Who's going to play in the playoffs? Yeah,
this is
exactly
why
what we said.
This is why continuity is important. Everyone talks about continuity all the time. I think it was RJ who said on the broadcast today that this starting lineup has logged more minutes together than any other 5-man lineup in the NBA. Obviously, we're seeing the benefits of that sort of come to fruition in the playoffs. These guys just know each other's tendencies by now, and they are really meshing in a way that, again, I didn't even expect in the playoffs. So that's also been amazing to see. But yeah, I mean, the bench is still holding their own. Šarić looks more confident this series than he has in I don't know how long. Cam Payne has played solid in every game. He just hasn't blown up for 15 plus. Torrey Craig's doing his thing, so not a bad guy on the roster right now, honestly.
Yeah, and look, Booker playing 40 minutes, Ayton playing 36,
right?
Crowder 33, Chris Paul 37. They're playing a lot of minutes. Chris Paul, by the way, looks to be If he's not 100% back, he's close to 100% back healthy because he looks right in now.
One other point I want to make on the starting lineup thing, though, is continuity is so important, and you're seeing that with the Jazz now, too, because they're the other team besides us that, I mean, look, they don't have Mike Conley, but other than that, they're the team that kind of had their team together all healthy throughout the season. They were relatively lucky with injuries, and we're seeing the benefits of continuity for both of these teams, at least with the rest of their starting lineup now. I just think it's fascinating that we're in a situation where truly on the cusp of a Western Conference Finals between the number 1 and the number 2 seeds, where it seems like both fan bases, and I know we're not in the habit of like defending Jazz fans here and whatever. I know there's a rivalry and whatnot, but honestly, I think it's going to suck that we're on the cusp of something where both fan bases are just going to have to like defend it to everyone else around the league. And like these are clearly the two best basketball teams in the conference. They've earned the right. We are on the cusp again. I don't want to jinx either team, but we are on the cusp of being able to say that these are the two teams that have earned the right to be in the Western Conference Finals. And you're still going to have to fight the narratives of, oh, this guy was injured in this series, that guy was injured. These are small market bullshit teams. We want the Lakers, we want the Clippers, yada yada yada. It's just, I don't know. We're getting really good basketball, Mike. We could get some really good basketball, but it's going to be annoying. That's all I'm saying. I'm looking ahead a little bit.
For Suns fans who feel the need to defend the product, just don't. Just don't. Who cares? This is really, really good basketball that we're seeing, and maybe not really from the Nuggets in a lot of ways, but from the Suns, from the Jazz, at times, the Clippers. I think the Clippers were kind of a garbage team for the last 2 games. Defensively, but like this is still high level basketball played by really good teams. If people don't understand that, they don't want to. It's like they're trying to.
Exactly. Anyone who is not an outright diehard Lakers fan, who still to this day, because you see them sometimes, you run into them in the wild, still like is like, oh, the Lakers should have been in the second round. Like we wanted to see the Lakers, or if they're still, if they want to see the Clippers, if they want to see these other big market teams, especially with the Lakers though. If they want to see the Lakers over the Suns, they want to see KCP brick 15, 20 shots in a row in the second round because they think that's a better product, then that is clear as day a stupid person. That is just simply a stupid person, and they're not worth your time. Now, the problem is, and I'm trying to be better. We're all trying to be better. We have New Year's resolutions, all of us. I'm trying to be better about not arguing with those people on Twitter and not giving them the time of day. And I would encourage you guys to do the same when you see them. The problem is that stupid people are consumers too. So, I do, like, on the one hand, I hear you. I don't want to have to defend the whole ratings thing. On the other hand, I want other people to appreciate this stuff as much as I do. And yeah, it's just going to hurt. I'm going to have to kind of internally fight that battle. I can already feel it coming.
Hey, the people that really love basketball will appreciate it. By the way, on Dario Saric, how about 2 fake DHOs that got points both times from Dario Saric in this game, including a pump fake that drew a foul? That, to me, to see him confident enough to fake that DHO, turn and dribble down the lane. Once, I think 2 pump fakes. One actually went in. The other, he was fouled. That's kind of where I felt like, okay, now he's got that confidence back. He looks a little bit more confident. He's
had a really funny development throughout this season where I came out of the gate. I remember I was posting a Dario Saric pump fake thread because the first 2 months of the season, it was automatic. Like, he was fooling guys every time with that pump fake. And then it got written on the scouting report because he switched positions this year. Centers weren't used to guarding him. So I could see how that would fool them the first time he plays them. And then it was written on the scouting report, they should have known already, this guy can't jump past 2 inches. The only way he's going to score on you is if he does a pump fake. Don't fall for the pump fake. And we saw for 3 months straight, everything Dario tried would get swatted out of the stratosphere. So to see him do it tonight, we finally come full circle where it worked and then it didn't work and then it didn't work so much to the point where it worked again. So I'm happy for Dario. He's strung together a couple good performances in a row. If you can get it where he can just make like most of his layups, just over 50%, and he hits his threes and he does the whole thing where he plays out of the elbow area as a playmaker, hey, you're getting everything you need out of that guy. And also, I thought it was important to note, this was not a game where Monty is feeling more confident about the rotations now. because he didn't have to match Ayton with Jokic every single minute. He played Dario and Jokic for about 4 or 5 minutes in this game. And I know that's not a lot, but it is more than we saw in game 1, for example, when it just felt like they wouldn't even dare try it. And now they're willing to try it, and that's also just a good sign for where his confidence is.
Let's talk about how the Nuggets defended the Suns, because I think this is where truly the Nuggets, I think, showed that they don't really have the personnel. It's not really a schematic problem with what the Nuggets are doing. It's more about the guys. They don't have the guys that can really do the types of things that makes the Suns struggle offensively. They just don't. They can't defend the Suns. That's really what it boils down to. We talked about it on our last episode. What could they potentially do? Jokic plays at the level of the screen. This is something that we've talked about. For those who don't know what I mean, that means Jokic is as high as possible on screens. That gives him the option to trap, like Devin Booker. When Devin Booker is coming around to pick and roll, the Suns play a lot of pick and roll offense. So that gives him the option to trap. He can potentially show or hedge, which means he comes out and basically tags Devin Booker and then runs back to get the roll man, DeAndre Ayton. Now they dropped him back a little bit further. And when you drop back further on the Suns, that's what the Suns want. That's what Chris Paul wants. That's why the Suns are favored against a lot of teams that play gigantic centers, because then you have centers in a position where they're backed up against the basket and they're forced to move their feet, because both Devin Booker and Chris Paul can shoot mid-range shots and just kill you from that mid-range area. And because both are good at passing, if they help off of anywhere else on the court, they can swing the ball. And because everyone else can pass, it can move even more times if they continue to recover. And that's how the Suns continue to find open shot after open shot after open shot.
They're just too fundamentally solid to guard with a drop coverage. So, the thing that the Nuggets took away tonight, to an extent, is that corner three that was killing them so much in games 1 and 2, right? Because the Suns didn't have those passes straight to the corners. Now, actually, the Suns still did hit some corner threes too. So I wouldn't say they exactly took it all away, but you know what I mean. They took away that initial pass that Booker and Paul were both making, but at the expense of just giving those guys whatever they wanted in the mid-range. I mean, the two of them had 55 points combined on 39 shots, which is very efficient offense. And part of the problem for Denver is this game was also officiated in a way where it wasn't just Chris Paul got to whatever spot he wanted. It was also Chris Paul snakes the pick and roll, gets, backs up a little bit. I thought you were spot on about this. You were like, they're dropping Jokic back, which means the Suns are pulling back a little bit too and getting more space to allow those guys to snake the pick and roll, which I thought was an astute observation. But once Chris Paul does that, he gets a defender on his back. He flails a little bit. We can admit that he did it. The Nuggets flailed too, but Chris Paul definitely flailed tonight. And he got to the free throw line.
Or just stops.
It just stops. And, it's the Trae Young thing too. He does that too. But Chris Paul does it as well. And he got 7 free throws tonight. Booker got another 4. So that was 11 points for them right there because they didn't miss a single one. It's just you can't guard those guys like that. And so you may be asking yourself, okay, if we're telling you that you can't guard Devin Booker and Chris Paul with a trap, you can't guard them with a high show or whatever, and you can't guard them with a drop, then what's left? Well, what's left is either you zone up on them, which teams will throw different looks at guys throughout a game. They'll zone up on you for like portions of a quarter, but it'll never be at the NBA level. It's never your primary defensive coverage. It's just kind of to confuse you for a couple minutes. And
the Suns have too good a ball movement. They can break zones.
They can. But all that really leaves is switching. And we've said from the beginning of this series, the Nuggets can't switch. And why can't they switch, Mike? There's a couple reasons, but which one are we really focusing on here?
They don't have the guys.
They don't have the guys, but specifically, which guy are they playing like 35 plus minutes a game who got toasted
Michael Porter
3
Jr.
games in a row? Mike.
And look, the reality is it's 2 guys that can't switch, but let's talk about Michael Porter Jr. first. The Suns just absolutely demolished Michael Porter Jr. on defense in this game. Look, we talked about the defensive scheme of dropping back on those pick and rolls, but the other thing they did is pick on the worst defender. And this is, I think, one of the main differences between the regular season and the playoffs is once you find a weak spot in the playoffs, as a coach, your job is to really hammer at that weak spot as much as possible. Be, as the Suns Twitter says, relentless with that. Take advantage of it as much as possible. And I think this is where Mikal Bridges deserves a lot of credit, because what the Suns were doing at first, and I think they actually did pretty well at this, is they were trying to get MPJ on Devin Booker. And anytime MPJ was on Devin Booker, it was just jab step between the legs, that sort of right to left crossover, and then he was drawing fouls. He got the first one at the 3-point line, which actually ended up being a 2 foot on the line, and got another one later in the game. But when the Nuggets were doing a better job, I think, of hiding Michael Porter Jr. just off to the side with Mikal Bridges on him, what I thought they did was fascinating. They put Mikal Bridges in the weak side corner, so the opposite side that they're running the pick and roll. They didn't just swing the ball to Mikal Bridges to allow him to sort of isolate with ball handling. They ran a pick and roll on the weak side. On the strong side, the opposite side of the court from Mikal Bridges, and then they swung the ball to Mikal Bridges at that point. And what that did is it sucked Michael Porter Jr. off into a little bit of no man's land, where he's afraid of the rim getting dunked on, if you will, and then swinging it to Mikal Bridges in the corner. Now Michael Porter Jr. is running out and trying to really close out hard on Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges doesn't have that sort of left to right ball handling yet, but what he can do is read a defender that's closing hard and attack him on his weak foot. So, and for those who don't know, it's the front foot, the foot that's planted forward. You attack that foot, it's harder for defenders to turn their hips. And if you're bad at turning your hips, like Michael Porter Jr.,
or if your entire back is made of Play-Doh,
yes, then you have Mikal Bridges in front of you. You're in a bad position, and all of a sudden you have Jokic, a bad defender, and Michael Porter Jr., a bad defender. And Mikal Bridges did a really, really good job of taking advantage of that in this specific game. A really good job.
Facts. He's, to your point, doesn't have the left to right shake. That's just not Mikal's game, but he's enough of a straight line driver and has enough explosiveness off his dominant foot that, he's going to kill MPJ in those situations when he's moving in space. And also, to Mikal's credit, we've seen him attack closeout so many times this season, but I've said this a million times. It's another step for him to really see it through to the end and attack the rim and get to the free throw line and go for those layups. He did that several times tonight. So I credit Mikal Bridges for really stepping up. As, yes, Chris Paul and Devin Booker were the number 1 and number 2 options in this game, but Mikal was almost as dynamic a scoring threat in some stretches as those guys. And so he was really good. Like, when you have a player like Mikal who can attack a mismatch like that, like you can identify it and then actually run plays for him, it's so much different from just the typical BS kind of 3-and-D mold player you think of just these standstill shooters in the corners. He's developed into so much more than that, and the fact that he can take advantage of these types of mismatches also bodes really well for the Suns' future, short-term and long-term.
The other player I want to talk about on the Nuggets, and Nikola Jokic deserves the MVP.
Yeah.
He deserved it. He does so many things well. So many things. But what he also does, I think, for me, is he exemplifies exactly why it's important for a center to be a sound defender in space. Because he's not. He's just not that. And I think it's tough because nobody wants to say this about Nikola Jokic in this series because he's doing so much to keep the Nuggets in it. But it's a different thing when a guard is doing that much on offense to keep a team in it and then incapable defensively, because they're not the last line of defense. The center is the last line of defense. So when your last line of defense is bad defensively, that's just really bad. And you and I, Sam, have been talking about this literally for years, and not because of Nikola Jokic, because of DeAndre Ayton. Well, the most important defensive center, the most important defensive position is at the center position, because that's the last guy that can defend the rim.
Well, it's because in Ayton's rookie year, he was that. He was bad. He was
in
bad.
Space. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
In space. And he's so good in space now that it's just such a different thing. And I think the modern NBA, if you want to break it down to these NBA Twitter terms that people use, in the modern NBA, your center cannot be this bad at defense in a playoff series, and Nikola Jokic can be better at defense. And I think this is a really bad matchup for him.
He can be better. I agree with you, sort of. He can be better, but I don't know. I just feel weird about casting all the blame on Jokic in this series.
It's not all of the blame. Yeah. I just think at some point, and I think people are afraid to do this. Maybe part of me just wants to be someone that's willing to say this at this point. It's more of a philosophical thing when it comes to basketball. It's just that how can you play a center? How can you play someone that can be picked on this much defensively and just be successful? And yes, you do all of the things offensively that makes you good. It's just a totally different thing when those things offensively are coming from the center position. And I think at some point, people are going to have to talk about that. The difference, if you will, between Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. Joel Embiid does a ton offensively, yet less than Jokic. But he's also that backline defender that really doesn't make a lot of mistakes in that position. And it's just, I don't know. It's just tough for me to watch a guy who can get picked on this much. I know he's the MVP, and I know how much he does.
If you gave him the Suns' wing rotation around him, it's so context dependent. Like, give him something other than MPJ and Austin Rivers.
Absolutely.
Please.
You're absolutely right.
If you replaced MPJ and Austin Rivers with Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder, it would be night and day. So I don't know. I mean, he could be a lot better in this series. I understand philosophically the argument you're making about being the last line of defense. We're just gonna have to see. Like the NBA is in a pretty unique place right now. You've got guys like Jokic who's still pretty young. He's got plenty of time to get healthier squads and try and make more deep playoff runs. I'm acting as if his season is guaranteed to be over. It's not guaranteed, but you know what I mean. A guy like Karl Anthony Towns, that's going to weigh over his career, his entire career. It's going to weigh over him. He either needs to get better on defense or win in spite of it. But yeah, someone needs to basically prove you wrong. And so we're going to have to see who it'll be, if anyone.
Yeah, it's a weird thing too with Karl Anthony Towns. Not that I want to go on too long of a tangent here, but he can move laterally. He just doesn't. And that's a completely different thing where Nikola Jokic, I'm not sure if he can move laterally too much, and that's a different thing with him. And I think the Suns, if you want to project forward at all, which I'm not willing to do for a long, extended period of time here as well, Gobert plays a drop, and he drops pretty far back, and that's just an interesting matchup for the Suns too. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if that does happen, right? Suns versus Jazz.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? What kind of adjustments are they going to make against the Suns who prefer that?
I do think Gobert can switch a little bit more than he's given credit for. He's
definitely more than Jokic. Yeah.
A lot more than Jokic, right. So he does drop primarily, but I also think the Jazz, it's just their wings. They've got, I don't know. That's going to be a really interesting matchup.
How fascinating is it that for the whole year we talked about, and we really spent a lot of time breaking down exactly why switching is the problem for the Suns offense. And they played a first round series where they kind of had the guys to switch, but not really.
Yeah.
A second round series where they did not have the guys to switch, and they could potentially play a third round series against the Jazz where they prefer to not switch.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's surprising.
It makes me feel really lucky that the Jazz are playing the Clippers, but on the other hand, the Jazz are just such an amazing offensive team. They're incredible shooters at every position, except for Gobert, obviously. But otherwise, they're incredible shooters at every position. And especially to see them have the series they're having right now without Conley is really impressive. But I guess they're really well built. Because they don't have the greatest point of attack defenders I've ever seen, but guys like Royce O'Neal, Bojan Bogdanovic is doing really well in that series. They're slightly bigger wings that are just really well built to match up on Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But in a series against Chris Paul and Devin Booker, it would be completely different. They're more strength and less speed. So I don't know. That's going to be a really interesting matchup. I should probably start researching it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think the Clippers do have a chance to come back and win that series, especially compared to the Nuggets coming
let me
back and
just
beating the Suns.
Let me just point out, teams that go down 2-0 in series, like this is just based on history. It's not projecting forward based on the current teams, but it's just history says if you go down 2-0, you still have like a 7% chance of winning historically. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, if you go down 3-0, 0% based on history. That doesn't mean you can't do the completely unprecedented and be the first, but those are just what the odds say. So the Clippers can definitely come back. It would be like a less than 1 in 10 phenomenon if they do. Totally possible, though.
I spent the entire second half of this game thinking about the ways that the Nuggets could win Game 4, assuming the Suns won this game. And the only thing I could really come up with, because I don't think it's a schematic thing, what it would take to me is a really poor shooting night from the Suns and a really, really like otherworldly shooting night from the Nuggets. It would just have to be a variance game.
My first impression is Michael Porter Jr. needs to have a Michael Porter Jr. game like he did in the Portland series where he had 22 points in that first quarter or whatever. But another part of me almost says, maybe just don't play. Dude, just don't play him. Like he's been that bad on defense. Maybe play him 15 minutes and just give Will Barton more minutes, and honestly, maybe you'd have a better chance.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if they changed up the starting lineup, took Facu out, who didn't even play that much in the second half as well. I think that might be their sort of desperation maneuver. But for the record, Michael Malone said he thinks the training staff is going to be mad at him for the amount of minutes he played Will Barton tonight. So it's just a little bit of a danger zone that they're getting into. One more game that's happening this weekend that could be the last game of the series if the Suns find a way to win. Obviously, we're going to be back to cover that one. Do you have anything else before we call it quits on this one?
We haven't done this in a while, so we're getting a lot of new listeners right now, which is always awesome. If you like the content, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I beg for that basically like once every month or two. But yeah, you guys would be surprised how much that helps us.
You know what else?
Getting the right
YouTube
eyeballs.
video.
What's up? Oh, yes. Fuck, yes, you're right. I literally spent like all day on that after I got off work too. Yeah, check out our YouTube video. I just posted a video about just the Suns, like what their identity is. You know, I think my motivation for making it was I was getting frustrated about some of the national conversation about they just don't get it. It's like, you know, this is a serious contending team now. They're in the second round, and there are still a lot of voices where I felt like they just don't get it. They give a lot of credit to Chris Paul. Chris Paul deserves an enormous amount of credit, but it can't just end there. That can't be the end of the story. And so I wanted to talk about what really separates the Suns from the rest of the pack. As a contender, I settled on their playmaking, which I think if you're going to talk about the Suns, you need to focus in on their playmaking, their ball movement. It really begins and ends there. They're good at a lot of other things, but that's the thing that sets them apart. And so I made a video about it. Check that out. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't. But also, yeah, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts because that helps a ton. It's totally free for you to do as well. So, yeah, that's all I got. We'll see you on Sunday.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. We will be back after the game on Sunday. Hopefully that will be the end of the second round, and the Suns will be in the Western Conference Finals. Thanks, everyone.
This episode is brought to you by Ro. Confidence is everything. Women can sense it, and trust me, they love it. But if you're in your head worried about performance, that swag, unfortunately, gentlemen, it's gone. Ro Sparks keeps you ready. When the moment hits, you can step up like a superhero and handle your business. No doubt, just confidence.
Fellas, Ro Sparks gets you ready fast, dissolving under your tongue and working in 15 minutes on average. No waiting, no missing the moment, plus it stays active up to 36 hours.
So when the mood hits, you can go back to back to back, round after round after round. Ro connects guys with medical provider 100% online, so there's no awkward conversation with in-person providers. Go to ro.com/sparks to see if you qualify. If prescribed, new sexual health patients gets $15 off Sparks on reoccurring plan. Connect with the provider at ro.co/fourth to find out if prescriptions Ro Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/4th for $15 off your first order. If approved, treatment ships directly to their door. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety info.